Warm greetings to one and all. My courtesy to our school's division superintendent, Ma'am Aluna C. Uy, to our assistant schools division superintendent, Ma'am Josie Bolofer, to the chief of curriculum implementation division, Ma'am Maria Gina F. Flores, to all our school heads and teachers who are watching right now. Good day to all of you and welcome to our virtual orientation on the Interim Guidelines for Assessment and Grading stipulated under DepEd Order number 31, Series of 2020. The date of release for this DepEd Order is October 2, 2020. So this is already available in the DepEd portal, the www.deped.gov.ph. So for those who have not read this yet, you can download this DepEd Order number 31 Series of 2020 entitled Interim Guidelines for Assessment and Grading in Light of the Basic Education Learning Continuity Plan. So this is in support of that previously released DepEd Order number 12 Series of 2020 entitled Adoption of the Basic Education Learning Continuity Plan for school year 2020 to 2021, wherein we are mandated to have this blended learning, the distance learning system, instead of face-to-face teaching learning process. So this DepEd Order, this is the answer of the so many questions on how we assess and grade our students under this new normal educational system. We have here the rationale of our DepEd Order. So COVID-19 brings about unprecedented challenges to basic education. So that is why teachers and parents must adapt to alternative learning modalities as specified in our DepEd Order number 12, which is the adoption of the Basic Education Learning Continuity Plan. As said by our DepEd Secretary, amidst the worldwide pandemic, education must not stop. So we should ensure learners to achieve essential curricular goals. So we need to design optimal learning experiences and assessing learning progress effectively. So under the distance learning environment, it is necessary to utilize alternative tools and strategies for assessing and supporting learning. So the existing DepEd Order number 8, Series of 2015, which is the classroom assessment of the K-12 basic education program, needs to be updated so that it will fit into the distance learning modalities that we've been using in this school year. So that is why we have this new DepEd Order number 31 Series of 2020. The scope of this DepEd Order be implemented by public elementary and secondary schools nationwide for school year 2020-2021. So nakaspecify talaga dito, for this school year lang siya gagamitin habang may pandemya. So lahat ng elementarya at sekundarya ng ating pampublikong paaralan ay dapat ma-implement ang DepEd Order na to. So for private schools and institutions, they are permitted to modify these policy guidelines with the approval of their respective DepEd regional office. Kailangan nila ng approval kung sakaling gusto nilang i-modify o hindi sila susunod sa DepEd Order na to into policy statement to ensure that all learners are fairly assessed and graded in the continuation of the education during this health crisis. Ibig sabihin, this DepEd Order ang magbibigay ng fair assessment and fair grading system under these distance learning modalities na ginagamit natin ngayon sa school year 2022-2021. Pangalawa, to emphasize that learning standards shall be attained with the provision of reasonable leniency and considerations for possible difficulties met by the learner. So, nandito din nakasaad sa ating DepEd Order, the emphasis that learning standards shall still be attained amidst this health crisis that we are facing right now. We also have a provision on giving reasonable leniency and considerations to our learners that possibly they could meet difficulties under this new normal. What are the roles and responsibilities? First, for the teachers, they are responsible of designing the assessment to allow for flexibility in multiple modalities. We have different learning modalities. It is the responsibility of the teachers to design the assessment to allow flexibility. Communicating to learners and parents and guardians the design and standards for grading the assessment. So that is why we have this orientation, so that teachers will be oriented by the new guidelines of the assessment under the new normal. And right after this orientation, you could also transfer your learning in communicating to your learners and parents or guardians to help them understand this new policy on assessment and grading. Setting up mechanisms to monitor and record progress remotely. So again, the word remotely meaning there will be no more actual face-to-face with our learners. So you have to set up mechanisms to monitor and record their progress. Giving timely, constructive, and relevant feedback. So pag sinabi po nating timely, dili ta magpadugay-dugay, no? Teachers sa paghatag sa ato ang feedback sa atong mga bata. Constructive, ibig sabihin ito po'y nakakatulong sa kanila kung paano ma-improve ang kanilang learning or skill for that specific competency. Then, relevant. Mahalaga, no? Importante, may connection yung feedback po natin sa goal or target po natin for that lesson or objective natin for that specific topic or lesson. And then lastly, we have facilitating remediation for learners who need further guidance. So, teachers, nandito pa rin ang remedial classes natin for learners. So, we have to monitor them, at pag nakita natin sa ating monitoring na nahihirapan yung isang learner natin, kailangan natin silang i-undergo to some intervention like remedial classes. So remotely pa rin ang ating remediation or intervention, and that would be given emphasis later on in our slides. So for learners, meron din silang sariling roles and responsibilities. So as learners, they should be proactive in updating their teacher of their situation. Teachers, you have to orient your learners through parents or guardians, or kung ma-communicate natin ang ating learners directly without face-to-face, they have to keep us updated of their situation, progress, and challenges encountered para tayong mga guro makahanap ng pamamaraan or other strategy, no, para matulungan po sila sa kanilang sitwasyon. And then a self-monitoring tool, you can recommend this to your learner na gamitin or i-fill up ang self-monitoring tool na enclosed in this DepEd Order. Kung meron na po kayong copy ng DepEd Order na ito, kung ma-download na po ninyo ito, merong sample self-monitoring tool para sa mga bata. This could be accomplished independently or with assistance of your parent, of their parent or guardian. This is a sample of the self-monitoring tool under Annex E enclosed in our DepEd Order 31 series of 2020. So kung makikita nyo po rito, i-fill in lang po ito ng bata with the assistance of the parent or the guardian, pangalan na mag-aaral, pangalan ng guardian, baitang at pangkat, petsa na nasakop ng form. So ano ang meron dito? Ito po ang mahalaga. No? Kasi hindi na natin nakikita ang ating mga mag-aaral kung anong ginagawa nila sa bahay, especially under the modular modality. Kasi majority sa ating sports division, ang pinipili ng mga mag-aaral ay ang modular. So therefore, hindi na natin sila makikita. So paano natin malalaman kung ano ang ginagawa nila sa araw-araw during class hours, during weekdays? So meron tayo ditong table, Lunes, Martes, Miyerkules, Huwebes, Biyernes, Sabado. So they will fill this up, no, bawat cell na to. So on our first row, we have this question: anong mga asignatura ang napag-aralan mo ngayon? So ilalagay ito ng bata dito. Kumusta ka sa mga aralin ngayon? Alin sa mga ito ang madali para sa iyo? Tapos bakit? May mga gusto ka bang itanong sa iyong guro tungkol sa aralin? Ilista mo dito ang iyong mga tanong. So, isasabay nyo po ito, ibigay sa kasabay ng module para masagutan ng bata. Then, for after a week or 2 weeks, kung kailan po yung schedule nyo for the retrieval or for sa susunod balik ng ating mga guardian or parents, so maibalik rin nila itong self-monitoring tool para po tayo teachers bilang guro, tayo po ay updated, tayo po ay communicated kung ano ang kanilang mga problema. So in that case, it will help us teachers to give the right or the appropriate feedback to our learners or intervention needed. So meron ding para sa mga magulang, no, the letter B sa ating self-monitoring tool dito. So same pa rin, Lunes, Martes, Miyerkules, Huwebes, tapos may tanong: nagawa ba ng iyong anak ang kanyang mga gawain sa paaralan ngayong araw? For example, Lunes, nagawa ng bata mag-isa, nagawa ng bata na may tulong ng iba, then di nagawa. Meron ding dito sa Martes, ganun din, check lang. Then question number 2, kumusta ang pag-aaral ng inyong anak? May mga gusto ka bang iulat o itanong sa kanyang guro? Isulat dito ang iyong mga puna, suggestion o tanong. So dito niya susulat. Letter C, mga komento at sagot. So dito na sa Part C, ilagay ng guro ang kanyang sagot kung may mga katanungan na nailagay dito ang mag-aaral o ang kanyang magulang o guardian. Alright, so nakita po natin kung gaano ka-helpful, gaano nakakatulong ang self-monitoring tool na ito. So again, this is not mandatory but it is highly recommended. Gamit aning module karon nang wala na ikitaay. So at least with this self-monitoring tool, makakumusta ay pa ang atong teacher o ang atong mga estudyante. So highly recommended. So let us encourage our teachers to use this self-monitoring tool. Now for parents and guardians, their roles and responsibilities are the following: communicate with the teacher to give updates on their child's situation, progress, and challenges encountered. So again, yung self-monitoring tool kanina na pinapakita, pag gumagamit po tayo noon, this role ng isang parent ay kanyang magagampanan. Kasi doon na sa self-monitoring tool niya, isusulat yung situation ng bata, progress and challenges being encountered. So aside from that self-monitoring tool, they can also communicate in different ways. So as teacher, meron tayong list ng mga contact number ng ating mga parents or guardian, no? So that anytime there will be two-way communication. Pwede nyo silang tawagan, pwede rin silang tatawag sa inyo to keep us or to keep the teacher updated as to the situation, progress, and challenges encountered by the learner. So, importante ang communication. So, let us remind our parents and guardians na mag-communicate palagi. No, dili kay sa ting grado na mo communicate pag makadawat na sa grado sa card nga bagsak di ay diha pa mo communicate. So that is how important constant communication. Dili lang mo communicate na ana ang final grade. So i-remind na to atong mga teachers, i-remind na to atong mga parents. Second, it is the responsibility of the parent and the guardian to guide their children in accomplishing the assessment tasks and or monitoring tools designed by the teacher. So again, ang trabaho ng parent and guardian ay dapat hindi sila yung sumasagot sa mga module, no, sa mga assessment tasks na binibigay sa mga bata. They will just guide. So i-remind na to atong parent and guardian kay daghan na kaayoy mga jokes na ginahatag ana sa social media, no? Makita nato nga ang mga parents na ang naga-answer sa module, ginahimo na siyang joke, but then it could be considered as reality. So we will remind them dapat ang bata gihapon ang mo answer, no? Dili sila mangunay, no? Kay basig matinuod tong ginaingon sa Facebook, sa social media nga labanan ni karon sa mga ginikanan. So at the end of the grading period, at the end of the school year, makita kinsa ang pinaka-bright nga mga parents or guardians. So hindi dapat ganon. Now, their responsibility and role as a parent or guardian is just to guide their children, assist them in accomplishing the assessment task. Dili kay sila mismo ang mo-accomplish sa assessment task. Alright? Next, formative assessment. So, under the DepEd Order 31 series of 2020, the policy guidelines on assessment and grading, meron pa rin tayong formative assessment under this new normal learning system po natin. So when we say formative assessment, it is a process that involves teachers using evidence about what learners know and can do to inform and improve their teaching. So what are these evidences that this definition is referring to in this current situation that we have? This refers to the self-learning modules. So ang self-learning module po natin na binibigay sa ating mga kabataan ngayon, ito po yung formative assessment natin. Dito malalaman ng teachers kung what the learners know and can do. So kaya yan pinapasauli ng departamento ang self-learning modules natin para din makapagbigay ng feedback ang teachers natin to improve the teaching learning process. So ito po yung ebidensya. So pag return ng self-learning modules, ebidensya po to, makikita ng teachers kung ano yung nalalaman o pwedeng gawin ng mga mag-aaral. So for kinder, grade 1 and grade 2, we are advised not to return the self-learning modules, but then gagawa pa rin tayo ng portfolio. No? Teachers, gagawa tayo ng portfolio wherein doon makikita ang mga works or evidences ng mga nagawa ng bata sa kanyang module. Because these grade levels, pwede nilang sulatan. They are allowed to write directly their answers on the self-learning modules. So, pwedeng i-picture ng parent or guardian, then i-send or ipadala ang pictures o i-send through internet. So, para magawa ng portfolio ng teacher. For grade 3 and up, they have to return the self-learning module sa teacher. Para din makita ng teacher kung ano ang mga nasagot ng bata. Ano pala ang nalalaman na ng bata. Ano ang kaya niyang gawin. So with that, ma-provide ng teachers ang necessary remediation or intervention on time. So though, hindi dapat natin madaliin kasi hindi ito pabilisan, but this is about mastery on the skill or mastery on the competency. So bigyan natin ang mga bata ng tamang oras. Pagkaisa sa uli rin nila na walang sagot ang self-learning module, so useless. So paano makikita ng teachers ang mga evidence on what the learners know and can do kung isa sa uli ang learning modules na walang sagot. Okay, so that's all for the formative assessment. We will now proceed to the summative assessment. So summative assessment, as we all know, it is an assessment administered at the end of a learning period. So formative assessment during the teaching learning process. Summative assessment is after a learning period. So its purpose is to measure the extent to which the learners have mastered the essential learning competencies. So yung self-learning modules po natin na binibigay at pinapasagot sa mga bata, yun po ang formative assessment natin. So tayo, teachers, our task is to create our own summative assessment. Yun yung ibibigay natin pagkatapos nating pasagutan ang series of modules. So that is to measure the extent to which the learners have mastered the essential learning competencies. So hindi tayo lalabas sa most essential learning competencies pa rin natin. So measure lang natin kung ano ang natutunan nila as to the set learning competencies in our MELC, most essential learning competencies. And the results of this summative assessment will be recorded and are used to report in the learner's achievement. Summative assessment recorded and will be used for the grading of the learner's achievement, which will be reflected in their report card. So recorded and are used to report as a grade na siya. No, numerical grade pa rin tayo sa school year na to under this DepEd Order. So summative assessment, this is to evaluate student learning at particular points in each quarter. So summative assessment shall continue in the form of written works and performance tasks. So dalawang summative assessment po ang gagawin natin, teachers, na i-provide sa ating mga estudyante, mga mag-aaral in this school year under new normal. Written work and performance tasks. So later on, we will discuss ano po ang pagkakaiba ng dalawa, ng written work at performance tasks. So tayo po ang gagawa nito kasi summative assessment to. Gagawa tayo ng written work, gagawa tayo ng performance tasks, or a collection or series of competencies para naman hindi weekly or hindi araw-araw sasagot ng summative assessment yung mga bata natin. So dapat hindi per competency. So it should be per unit or series of topics, group of lessons. Ang gagawin natin ng written work at gagawan din natin ng performance task. So later on, we'll discuss more on what is this written work all about and performance tasks. Teachers should set realistic expectations. So magiging realistic po tayo mga kaguro, and use this professional judgment to find a good balance between what is effective and what is feasible to accomplish remotely. So remotely, walang face-to-face pa rin. Ibig sabihin, this would be a challenging part to our learners. That is why we have to use our professional judgment as to find a good balance between what is effective and what is feasible to accomplish. Huwag po nating pahirapan ang ating mga mag-aaral. Okay, klaro po yun? So, written works. Two components of summative test, the written works and performance tasks. So pag sinabi nating written works, it will assess essential knowledge and understandings. Kung titingnan po natin yan, babalikan po natin ang ating curriculum guide. Ito po yung content standard. So naka-align ang written work para masagot or ma-measure ang content standard. When you say content standard, this is the knowledge and understanding of the learner. So this could be in the form of quizzes and long or unit tests. So long test, unit test, quiz, ito po yung mga written works natin na nakasanayan. Distributed across cognitive process dimension. Pag sinabi po natin cognitive process dimensions, so ito yung mga thinking skills. So, pag sinabing distributed across cognitive process dimensions, ibig sabihin yung 6 thinking levels natin ay dapat napaloob ng ating mga questions or tasks sa ating written work. Combination of selected response and constructive response formats. What is this selected response? So, ang bata ay may selection, choices na mapagpipilian. So, yung sagot nandun na sa written work mo, pipili na lang sila dun saan dun ang tama. Pag constructed response naman, sila ang co-construct ng kanilang sagot. No? Hindi makikita dun sa questionnaire or sa task natin, kundi sila ang mag-construct. Examples of which, open-ended questions, essay, journal, etc. Selected response, true or false, matching type, multiple choice, yun po ang mga examples na pwede natin gawin sa under written works. So ito po yung cognitive process dimensions na sinasabi ko kanina. The 6 thinking levels or the taxonomy na tinatawag natin. We have remembering, that is the first level, understanding, going up to applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. Pag sinabi din nating low order thinking skill or the LOTS. So ito po yung nasa first 3. Pag sinabi nating higher order thinking skills or HOTS, ito po yung nasa taas, no? Higher thinking. So yung leveling po natin dito ay downward, no? Downward. So this is the first level to the highest thinking level, which is creating. So our first 3 low order thinking skill, remembering, understanding, and applying. higher order thinking skill po natin, yung top 3 natin, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. So ito pong creating ang masasabi nating highest order thinking skill. So dapat ito ay distributed among your questions in your or tasks in your written works. So paano po yan masisiguro? Make use of the table of specification, kung saan nakasulat doon ang mga competencies, topics, or lesson, and then corresponding the item number, specific item number na makikita ang competency na yan, and then it is mapped on what thinking level. Bawat numero, bawat item ng inyong written works ay nakamap kung anong thinking level siya na belong. So in that way, makakasiguro ka na well-distributed ang iyong mga questionnaires, ang iyong mga questions, assessment tool mo, sa written work mo, lahat ay na-distribute, lahat ng cognitive process dimensions ay na-distribute in all items. So make use of that table of specification para masiguro na distributed lahat ng items sa lahat ng cognitive process dimensions natin. So I have here an example of the keywords that you can use pag gusto mong gumawa ng tanong or task under a specific thinking level. For example, remembering. So, depende yan sa competency. So, kung ang competency mo ay pang-remembering, so yung question mo ay may keywords tayo dito na pwedeng gamitin. So, you can make use of the identify, retrieve, recognize, duplicate, list, memorize, repeat, reproduce. So, ito po na belong sa remembering. This is simple recall of information and retrieval of relevant knowledge, stock knowledge. Pag understanding naman, ito po yung keywords na sinasuggest. Interpret, exemplify, classify, summarize, infer, compare, explain, paraphrase, discuss. So when we talk about understanding, it is the ability of the learner to construct meaning from what he or she have learned through oral, written, and graphical messages. Under applying, you can make use of these keywords: execute, implement, demonstrate, dramatize, interpret, solve, use, illustrate, convert, and discover. So when we talk about applying, this is the process where the learner can use information to undertake a procedure in familiar situations or in a new way. So you will apply your learning in a new way or in other situations. So that is applying. Analyzing, the learner can distinguish between parts and determine how they relate to one another. So from a big picture, he will or he can distinguish the parts of the big picture, and he will be able to relate these parts with one another to make an overall structure or purpose. So when you make questions or tasks at this level, analyzing, you can make use of these keywords: differentiate, distinguish, compare, contrast, organize, outline, attribute, deconstruct. Evaluating naman. So, ano ba yung evaluating na proseso or thinking level? Ito yung when a learner can make judgment and justify decisions. So, more on decision making, evaluating. They can judge a situation. So you can make use of the keywords coordinate, measure, detect, defend, judge, argue, debate, critic, appraise, and evaluate. So ito yung mga keywords. Pag gusto po kayong gagawa ng isang task na belong sa evaluating. So creating naman ang ating pinakamataas na level of thinking. So in here, the learner can put elements together to form a functional whole, create a new product or point of view. So from pieces, they are going to put them together and form a new product or point of view. So ano yung mga keywords na pwede natin gamitin dito as a teacher? We will make use of these keywords in formulating our questions or tasks. These are generate, hypothesize, plan, design, develop, produce, construct, formulate, assemble, design, and devise. So, importante po to mga teachers natin. This would be our guide. Dahil tayo po mismo ang gagawa ng sarili nating summative test, written work, or performance task. So, we should be guided by these keywords para to ensure that our questions, that our tasks in the assessment tool that we are going to provide to our students is well distributed among all the cognitive process dimensions. So wag po kayong mag-alala, bibigyan ko po kayo ng downloadable file ng PowerPoint presentation ko na ginagamit ko ngayon para po may guide kayo nito, para may copy kayo. No, just subscribe to my YouTube channel, Tropa ni Dangas. No advertisements at Tropa ni Dangas YouTube channel. Subscribe mo dito. Para kay dito na ko ihatag ang downloadable link aning PowerPoint file. So para na mo sariling copy. No, search lang ninyo Tropa ni Dangas. Then subscribe lang para makatabang and share para makatabang ta sa uban. Okay, to proceed, we have the performance task. So again, ang summative test po natin ay binubuo ng dalawang component, the written work and the performance task. So tapos na tayo sa written works. Ngayon, performance task naman ang ating ipapaliwanag. So when we talk about performance task, this refer to assessment tasks that allow learners to show what they know and are able to do in diverse ways. So when we say show what they know, this means they are going to demonstrate the learnings or the knowledge they have. So sa curriculum guide, if we go back to the curriculum guide, we have two standards, the content standards and the performance standards. So what the learners must know and able to do, that is content standard. Yun yung dapat naka-align doon ang written work. Ang performance task naman dapat naka-align sa performance standard. So ito yung what the learners can demonstrate of what they know and can do in diverse ways, no, in different situation. So that is the performance standard. Allow learners to know what they know and are able to do in diverse ways. So ang performance task natin, align siya sa performance standard natin sa ating curriculum guide. So the purpose of performance task is to create or help our learners to create or innovate products. So aside from products, they could also do performance-based tasks. When we say products, these are the tangible output. Ang performance-based task naman, we are more measuring or assessing on how they accomplish the task. Nakuha? Product is the output. Performance-based task is on the process, on how they accomplish the task. So these are the examples of performance-based tasks. We have the skill demonstration, group presentations, oral work, multimedia presentations, and research projects, and the likes. There are also other examples that we could give or activities that we could consider as performance-based tasks in addition to these suggested samples. Then we can also consider written outputs as performance tasks. So it is not only about the tangible product or output, performance-based tasks. It could also be a form of written outputs. So written outputs may also be considered as performance tasks. So these are the things to remember if we in giving performance tasks to our learners. So each task must be accompanied with clear directions and appropriate scoring tools like checklists, rubrics, rating scale, etc. So it is not just plainly an instruction on what to make, what to accomplish, but it is a task that accompanied with appropriate scoring tools aside from the direction. So there should be a scoring tool. So usually we make use of rubrics. So later on, I will show you examples or we will discuss more about rubrics. Another thing to consider in giving performance tasks is collaboratively design and implement performance tasks that integrate two or more competencies within or across subject areas. Na-mention ko na to kanina na ang pagbibigay ng performance task ay hindi lang isang competency, nakatutok lang sa isang competency. It should integrate two or more competencies within or across subject areas. Third one, complex tasks may be broken down into shorter tasks to be completed over longer periods of time. So, kapag medyo komplikado po yung task natin, pag sa tingin natin po ay mahihirapan ng ating mga mag-aaral sa task na ibigay natin, pwede din natin itong i-broken down into shorter tasks para po makakasiguro tayo na matatapos at ma-accomplish ito ng bata. So shorter tasks with a longer period of time. Then learners must also be given flexibility in the accomplishment of performance tasks. So we will consider time and resources available, especially at this time of pandemic, and we are implementing the distance learning modalities. Yun pong makakayas lang sa oras at ang resources ay accessible sa kanila. And then provide enough opportunities for learners to practice and to redo their work whenever necessary. So pag hindi po na-achieve yung skill na gusto nating ma-attain or yung competency na dapat ma-achieve sa isang performance task, pag hindi po nakuha ng ating mga mag-aaral, bigyan po natin sila ng pagkakataon to redo their work. Then reach learning targets with least amount of pressure. Huwag po nating madaliin. Okay? So these are the things to remember in giving the performance task. So, conducting assessment remotely. So, ensure the following details are explained. So, sa pagbibigay natin ng assessment, either formative or summative, these are the following na dapat klaro sa mga mag-aaral natin. First is objectives of the assessment task. Yung objectives natin dapat naka-align sa skill na gusto nating ma-develop ng bata. And what are the skills? Ito po yung most essential learning competencies natin. So yung assessment task natin nakaangkla dapat sa most essential learning competencies. Roles of learners and parents and guardians. So klaro kung ano dapat ang mga role ng learner at ano din ang role ng parents at saka ng guardian. Kasi baka pagdating sa panahon, sa actual, ang parent na ang gumagawa kasi hindi pala kaya ng learner gawin ito. And then, the procedure and expected timeline. So dapat ang timeline, again, it should be long period of time or enough. We will give enough time para ma-accomplish po ito. And then the procedure, these are the instructions, the directions, it should be clear. Standards and rubrics. Huwag kalimutan ang standards and rubrics. Dapat na ibigay, na explain, na present sa mag-aaral, sa ating learner, sa pagbibigay ng performance task. Hindi ito dapat ang teacher lang ang nakakaalam, kundi bago pa man nila simulan ang kanilang task, either written work or performance or formative assessment, dapat klaro na ang mga criteria kung paano sila i-assess sa kanilang performance o product, which is in the form of rubrics. So, sample summative assessment tools. So, ipapakita ko sa inyo itong sa modular learning kasi ito yung majority sa atin sa ating division. So, sa DepEd Order na 31 series 2020, meron din dong iba pang summative assessment tools na mga sample aside from modular learning. So in this presentation, ang maibigay ko sa inyo ay, ang ipapakita ko sa inyo ay for modular learning muna, modular learning. For other modalities, you can download the DepEd Order and see other samples for that. Learning area, languages, we have the English, Filipino, and mother tongue. We have these summative assessment tools that we can give to our learners. So for written outputs, we have these samples: the book, the reviews, essays, journals, letter writing, reaction, reflection paper, and then reports. So sample po to ng mga summative assessment tool na pwede natin gamitin sa ating distance learning modality. And then for products, we could have campaign, case studies, collage, compositions, literary analysis, multimedia productions, portfolios, research projects, story, or poem writing. For performance-based tasks, we have interviews, multimedia presentations, and project making. So these are the examples that we could choose from. Then for mathematics, we have these different summative assessment tools as suggested. in the form of written outputs, products, and performance-based tasks. So for written outputs, we could choose among the following. You could give data recording and analysis, geometric and statistical analysis, graphs, charts, or maps, problem sets, and surveys. So these are examples of written outputs. For products, you could also ask your learners to make a diagram, do mathematical investigatory projects, models, making models of geometric figures, number presentations, and portfolio. Performance-based task samples in mathematics, we have constructing graphs from surveys conducted. So yung surveys po natin dito should be done virtually, no? Bawal po ang paglabas sa bahay and pag face-to-face sa mga recipients ng survey natin. So dapat do this online, no? Or via internet or virtual platform lang po tayo or tawagan through phone calls or text messages. For number 2, multimedia presentation. Pwede rin yang papagawa natin sa kanila. Outdoor math, probability experiments, problem posing, reasoning and proof, using manipulatives to show math concepts or problem solving, and then you could also have using measuring tools or devices. Sa science naman, for written output, pwedeng concept map, data recording analysis, laboratory reports and documentations, reaction or reflection papers, pwede rin surveys for science as written output. For products, we have investigatory projects, models and diagrams, construction, prototype building, then research papers. Performance-based tasks naman, we have designing and implementation of action plans, designing various models, doing scientific investigations, issue awareness campaigns, laboratory activity, multimedia presentation, simulation, skills, demonstration, then verification experiments. For araling panlipunan, ito naman yung mga examples natin for modular learning, concept maps and organizers as written output, and so with essays, journals, news writing, news article reviews, reaction, and reaction papers. Products, collage and diorama making, leaflet, poster, and slogan making, map construction, research work, timelines, film, documentary reviews and analysis, advocacy paper. For performance-based tasks, we have community involvement, interviews, issue awareness campaigns, news reporting, presentations and multimedia presentations. We have also simulations. That is for Araling Panlipunan. For music and arts, we have here written output samples. You can let your learner do some essays, reaction or reflection paper, research paper. Under music subject, pwede rin as a product, musical arrangements, musical or song analysis, musical research, writing program notes. For performance-based tasks, multimedia presentation, musical presentation, skills demonstration, it's either singing or playing instruments. Under art, we have essays, reaction or reflection paper, then research paper. So sample products, they could do art criticism and appreciation compilation, art exhibit, art projects, portfolio. For performance-based tasks, art production, multimedia presentation, portfolio, skills demonstration, drawing, color, and painting. For physical education or PE, We have the following written outputs: essays, reaction or reflection paper, and research paper. So products under physical education, article, journal review, personal fitness and health logs, and portfolio. Performance-based task naman ng physical education, pwedeng personalized exercise programs, physical activity participation, physical activity fitness, skills and demonstration. For health, under written output, essays, journal or article review, reaction or reflection papers, research paper. Under product, journal responses, personal fitness and health logs, portfolio. Performance-based tasks, personal fitness and health program, issue awareness campaigns. For ESP or edukasyon sa pagpapakatao, written output samples, essays, journal writing or journal article reviews, reaction or reflection papers, products, argument analysis, expressing feelings and ideas through art activities, journal responses, letter or song, poem writing, performance-based tasks, issue awareness campaign, presentations and multimedia presentation, personal action plans, situation analysis. So these examples needed really an enough time to accomplish, especially pag nasa lower grade level natin to maibigay, no? Nakikita naman niyo yung mga samples pang higher level o grade level. So dito sa EPP, TLE, sample naman for written outputs, essays, diagrams, charts, and models, work designs, and plans. For products, they have technical drawing output, prototype building, products or projects using locally available materials. For performance-based tasks, skills demonstration, skills application, laboratory exercises, oral tests, design, creation, and layout of outputs, diagnosis, and repair of damaged equipment. So, as you could notice, in our examples, kailangan talaga ng medyo mahabang panahon. Merong iba for written outputs, pwedeng mas maiksi na mga araw for written outputs natin. Pero sa products at saka sa performance tasks across all subject, medyo mahirap din para sa mga bata. Pag i-pressure natin sila for a shorter period of time. So these are just samples, no, suggested summative assessment tools. So para po sa iba pang examples, you just download this DepEd Order and then makita nyo rin yung iba pang mga examples sa ibang modality naman aside from modular learning. So marami ring ibang performance-based tasks, products, and written outputs na maaari nating ipagawa sa ating mga mag-aaral kahit wala po dito sa DepEd Order. So pwede rin namang mag-modify kayo o makahanap kayo ng iba pang summative assessment ninyo. As long as inline ito sa ating learning competency. So yun lang po ang importante. At dapat kaya ng bata, kaya niyang gawin sa panahon ng pandemya nang hindi kailangang lumabas sa bahay. Kaya niyang gawin within a span of time and with the use of available resources. So yun lang po ang dapat nating tandaan. So wag na natin masyadong pahirapan kasi nahihirapan na nga sila sa sitwasyon natin. Papahirapan pa ba natin sila sa mga assessment task natin? So we have also mentioned about rubrics kanina. This is important in giving performance task in giving instructions or during the orientation for tasks that our learners must accomplish, dapat naibigay din natin ang way of grading their output or our way of assessing their product, outcome, or output. So, paano ba i-assess natin ang kanilang performance, ang kanilang product? So, we'll make use of a scoring tool. So, it is called a rubric. A rubric is a learning and assessment tool that is used to evaluate written outputs, products, or performance-based tasks. So, it is a scoring guide that articulates the expectations and describes the levels of quality expected from a learner. So there are 4 essential features of a rubric. We have the descriptive title, the scale or the scoring system. We have the components or criteria and performance descriptor. So ito yung parts ng isang rubric. Title, the description, the performance descriptor, ito yung mga description ng mga component na dapat nating makita sa kanilang output or performance, dito po nakasulat. And then the scoring or the scores. So, kailan natin sila mabibigyan ng score na 85 to 80? Pag ito lang yung nakita natin sa kanilang output, sa kanilang performance. So pag ito naman nakikita natin, 89 to 85 yan. 94 to 90, ito. So yung learner, may guide siya kung gusto niyang magkaroon ng high score or perfect score. So may guide siya paano. So ito yung nasa performance descriptor. Magbibigay sa kanya ng guide para ma-achieve niya yung score na gusto niya, 95 to 100. So this is an example of holistic rubric. So there are 2 types of rubrics, the holistic and analytic rubric. So ito ang example ng holistic rubric. One way, tinatawag rin natin tong one way rubric. Describes the overall characteristics of a performance and provides a single score. So single lang ang kanyang scoring in the entire performance or output. Single scoring lang, pinagsama-sama na niya ang lahat ng components. So the component na hinahanap, the different components na hinahanap ng isang teacher sa performance o task na ito ay ang content, presentation of work, and reflection. So itong tatlo, kinumbine na niya sa isang scoring system. So lahat na yan, anong makikita mo tungkol sa presentation of work, ano dapat sa reflection mo, ano dapat sa content mo, binigyan na niya ng single score yan, 95 to 100. Pinagsama na ang lahat ng components na hinahanap niya sa isang performance or product. So that is holistic. It provides single score and describes the overall characteristics of a performance. Makikita sa performance descriptor ang lahat na ng characteristics na hinahanap ng guro in one scoring lang. So, pag sinabi naman nating analytic, two-way, no? Meron tayong dito yung mga components or dimension. Then in each dimension, meron siyang score. So articulates different dimensions of performance and provides ratings for each criterion or dimension. So yung scoring niya, hindi na pang-overall scoring ng performance or product, kundi for each criterion ng performance of product. So yung dimension niya dito is define the problem, identify appropriate strategies, and then implement solution. So under analytic, mayroon siyang sariling scoring sa define the problem. So 3, 2, 1. Sa identifying appropriate strategies naman, meron din siyang sariling performance descriptor para makakuha ng 3, kailan ibibigay ang 2, kailan ka makakascore ng 1. Ganon din sa implement solution, may sarili siyang scoring na 3, 2, 1. The parts are still the same. We have the title, the description of the rubric, the scale and scoring, ito 3, 2, 1, then performance descriptor, and then the criteria. So, as teachers, dapat alam na po natin paano paggawa ng rubric na pwedeng i-match sa ating mga ginagawang ibibigay na performance task at written work. So, meron din tayong mga available rubrics online. So, pwede rin kayong mag-download and modify na lamang natin po para match sa ating mga performance task na ipamimigay sa ating mga students. So this is an example of a performance task. This for week 1. So ano ang kanyang performance task? So for online learners, ito ang kanyang pinapagawa. The learners are expected to create blog as the first entry for the virtual learning portfolio. So meron siyang balak na virtual learning portfolio, compilation ng iba't ibang output. So ang unang entry ng bata para sa portfolio na yan ay ang kanyang blog. So gagawa sila ng blog, ang title ay Pandemic Ka Lang, I Am Filipino. So discussing learners' awareness of oneself, their changing environment, and realize initiatives that a Filipino youth can contribute in the society amidst the global pandemic. The output is to be shared through social media platforms kasi online learners. For offline digital learners, ito naman yung pinapagawa niya. Offline interactive presentation through slide decks and injection of self-made videos. So, pwede siyang PowerPoint presentation or any presentation software. Basta merong video at saka mga slides na ang laman ay ang learners' awareness of oneself, their changing environment, and realize initiatives that a Filipino youth can contribute in the society amidst the global pandemic. Pareho lang po sa content na nandun for online learners. Pareho lang din ang title, Pandemic Ka Lang, I Am Filipino. And then meron ding silang portfolio, kaya lang offline digital learning portfolio. So ibig sabihin yung approach lang ang nag-iiba. Same po ang content, same ang pinapagawa. For modular learners, ito naman ang sa kanya, yung mga learners na walang gadgets and connection. So sila ay expected to create an informative write-up report. So written output ang sa kanila. But still, meron din silang portfolio, no? Printouts, collection of their printed out output. Ibubuo sa isang portfolio. Same title, Pandemic Ka Lang, I Am a Filipino. Then the same din ang content ng write-up report sa pinapagawang blog at offline interactive presentation for online learners and offline digital learners. So different approach, different platform, but the same purpose of the performance tasks assigned to our learners. So yan po ang example. So alam po teachers in our field can also do the same or even malampasan pa ang mga quality ng mga ganitong performance task na pwede nating ipapagawa sa ating mga mag-aaral. So sa kanyang performance task, nakasaad doon ang role. Diba? Ito yung sinasabi kanina that things to consider when we are giving performance tasks or summative assessment. Dapat klaro ang role ng learner, klaro ang instruction, no? Ano ang product, then timeline, at saka yung standards and scoring. So yung role ng bata dito ay the learner is an analyst, researcher, and an influencer of personal and social awareness and initiatives for global stewardship. No, simulation ang dating ng performance task na ito. The learner will act like an analyst, a researcher, or an influencer. So ang audience niya nakadescribe din sa performance task na binigay ng teacher. For online learners, the task addresses a wider general public audience in different social media platforms. While offline, digital learners and modular learners addresses their task to family members and immediate community. So situation. The quarantine lockdown forced the youths ages 19 below to stay in their homes. Despite the quarantine restriction, the Samahan ng mga Kabataan in Tansa launches a youth empowerment campaign highlighting the contributions and initiatives that young people can still do amidst the threat of the COVID-19. The learner, as the president of the organization, designs the campaign through creation of blog, interactive presentation, and informative write-up report showcasing knowledge, awareness, and initiatives of a Filipino youth in the time of pandemic. So this is now the situation. So nakasaad kung ano ang sitwasyon and then ano ang kaniyang dapat mabuo. Ito yung product. So the online learner creates a blog. The offline digital learner creates offline interactive presentation. And then modular learner informative write-up report. And of course, the standards or the scoring is also provided. So ito yung rubric for assessing informative write-up report, an example. So meron din siyang rubric for online learners, yung blog, rubric niya para sa creation of a blog. Then meron din siyang rubric for the presentation enclosed sa ating DepEd order, no, for more information and for more examples. So record of progress. So when we say record of progress, these are sample collection and recording of evidences of learning. So ito dapat meron ang teacher. So ano yung mapapakita natin na proof, evidence na may natutunan ang bata. Pruweba natin na ano ang mga na-accomplish ng bata. The tracking of progress of our learners. So what are these sample collection or recording of evidences? So we have already introduced the self-monitoring tool. So yun yung pinakita ko sa inyo kanina na sample ng self-monitoring tool, yung everyday para siyang naka-journal kung ano ang na-learn ng bata on that specific day, ano ang kanyang nagawa, ano kanyang na-accomplish, ano ang mga tanong niya na gustong masagot, ano yung interested part sa kanyang ginawa on that day, at ano naman yung frustrating part. Yun, makikita sa self-monitoring tool. So you could also have check-ins of teacher, or in other words, your attendance of teacher with learner, especially during assessment period. Kasi wala na tayong face-to-face, wala na sila sa classroom. So yung attendance natin, tinatawag na lang natin na check-ins or checklists. So kung gumagamit ka ng online, so meron kang checklist doon na pruweba na nakatake ng assessment mo ang batang ito in your online class. So pag online po tayo, meron siyang mga recording ng ating assessment. So pag naka-comply po ang bata, so yun na po yung proof natin na naka-check-in yung bata. So what about for offline digital learner? So ito naman yung mga virtual classroom natin. So submission, may mga submitted file or filled up docs na nakasave din doon sa ating virtual classroom. So yun din ang proof natin as check-ins ng teacher with learner. So sa modular naman, syempre yung submitted output nila. So all you have to do is to compile these submitted outputs, either formative and summative, as our check-ins, proof of check-ins of teacher with learner, especially for assessment period. So evidence of learning in the students' learning portfolio. So gawa rin tayo ng portfolio, especially for kinder, grade 1 and grade 2, kasi hindi na pinapasauli ang kanilang self-learning modules para may mabasa-basa po yung mga bata natin, kasi nasa primary level pa po sila, no? Reading, writing and speaking pa po yung skills na dapat ma-develop sa kanila, mga basic numeracy and literacy. So hindi na natin pinapasauli ang kanilang self-learning modules. So ano yung proof mo na may evidence of learning yung bata? So you can ask pictures or digital soft copy of pictures or proof na sinasagutan ng bata yung mga binibigay mo na modules. And then yung assessment na binibigay mo, summative assessment, dapat ding ma-submit nila. So yung summative assessment, written output or performance task, dapat talagang masauli yun ng bata, including kindergarten, grade 1 and grade 2. Kasi yun yung gagamitin natin para sa grado nila, pag-compute ng grado. So for self-learning modules, for kinder, grade 1 and grade 2, pasend na lang kayo ng pictures din. Gawan nyo ng portfolio for each learner. No, doon yung compilation ng pictures na while working ang bata or output ng mga bata or answers nila sa kanilang self-learning modules. And then of course, the class record. Alam na rin natin kung ano yung class record. So no need to discuss. Ang computation na lang sa grado, which will be reflected in the class record, ang i-discuss natin mamaya. And then of course, the learner's report card na siyang ipamamahagi natin sa parents, i-report natin sa parents at saka sa estudyante ang kanilang numerical rating for each grading period. So ito yung different recordings of progress of our learner. Feedback and remediation. So when and how to give feedback. So both formative and summative assessment results must be reported to learners. So yun palang formative assessment, which is in modular form na naibigay natin sa kanila, dapat rin yun mabalik sa ating mga bata yung result ng kanilang, hindi na yung answer kasi may answer key, but the solution na lang ang titingnan ng the process kung paano nila na-derive yung sagot. So dapat din yun maibalik sa estudyante as feedback. Kasi formative and summative assessment results must be reported to learners, hindi lang sa summative assessment. Kasi yung formative assessment results, pag mabalik natin yan sa mga bata, yun yung feedback natin sa kanila on how to improve in preparation para sa kanilang performance or written work in the coming summative assessment on that series of lessons or topics. And then results of also for summative assessment, dapat maibalik rin sa bata. Para naman guided yung learner at saka yung parents, aware siya sa progress ng kanyang mga results sa summative assessment. Kasi yun yung magiging basis ng kanyang grado for that quarter or grading period. So talagang dapat maibalik. Timely, constructive, and meaningful. So again, timely, hindi pwedeng by batch na ma-return. Baka i-return yun yung formative assessment results ng mga bata, tapos na ang summative assessment for that topics or lessons. So hindi yan timely. So prior sa summative assessment, dapat naibalik na ang result para timely, no? On time ang pagbabalik natin ng pagbibigay ng feedback. Constructive. So dapat yung feedback natin klaro kung paano nila ma-improve ang skill. Kung paano nila, kung anong area, anong part ng competencies dapat sila ma-improve, no? Constructive. And then meaningful. So yung feedback natin, meaningful, meaning it is anchored, your feedback is being anchored on the fulfillment or attainment of the competency. Para meaningful siya, relevant yung feedback mo. Maximize available communication options. So, dahil wala tayong face-to-face with our learners, it is not an excuse na wala dapat tayong pakialam sa kanila, no? Yung parents na or guardian na ang bahala sa kanila, importante na ibigay mo na yung modules. No. So you have to maximize available communication. Pwede kang magbigay ng written feedback, no? Kung sa modular ang mga bata mo nasa modular modality, so ang gagawin mo is written feedback. So yung output nila, isusulat mo doon yung feedback tapos ibalik sa kanila. So written feedback on the output. Pwede mo ring i-text via SMS. So dapat meron tayong contact numbers sa lahat ng mga parents or learners natin kung meron man silang contact number para at any time kung magbibigay na ng feedback ay ma-text natin sila or pwede silang matawagan. Then messages via internet, group chat, chat box, email, pwede rin doon. So maraming paraan, maliban lang sa face-to-face, aside from face-to-face. Or you can call via phone or online. There are many different ways to communicate with them so that we can provide the appropriate feedback. Alright? So, hindi lang release and retrieval of modules, then check, then compute, and give grades. So, we still have to communicate with them para maibigay natin yung tamang intervention para sa improvement ng kanilang learning, para matrack ang progress ng mga bata. In such a way, we can now give the needed remediation. So meron pa rin tayong remediation under this new normal educational modalities natin ngayon. Meron pa ring remediation. So because we have to maximize our communication with our learners and parents, so we can now track their progress. So aside sa feedback na naibigay natin, so applicable pa rin yung remediation natin o remedial class na tinatawag. So when and how to give remediation? Learners need remediation when they earn raw scores which are consistently below expectation. So ipanindot lang ng word nga below expectation. Sa Bisayaan na bagsak, no? Consistent na bagsak, meaning below 75 or below 50% ang raw score ng bata in our class record as a result of summative assessment na binibigay natin. Pag consistent nga below siya 50% sa kanyang results sa mga summative assessment, by the 5th week of any quarter, the learners need remediation. So the question now is how to give remediation without face-to-face contact. So remediation can be done using available communication. Again, yung ginagawa natin sa ating feedback, giving of feedback. So we will maximize different forms of communication just to reach the learner. So kung modular ang modality ng learner na nakita mo na consistent, the 5th week, consistent ang summative assessments results niya ay below 50% ang raw score. So kailangan mo siyang matawagan, makausap, makumusta, reach the learner, and provide opportunities to practice and redo their work whenever necessary. So, ang remedial class natin ngayon is in the form of redoing their work, their assessment, their summative assessment. So, bibigyan natin sila uli ng summative test natin. It's either written work or performance tasks. So, we will provide them opportunities to practice and redo or improve their output in the summative assessment. So, yun po ang pwede natin gawin sa remediation. So, hindi po yung remedial class na face-to-face, no? Still, follow pa rin tayo sa no face-to-face contact with our learner. So, just provide them supplementary summative assessment para mabigyan ng pagkakataon na ma-improve. So, at the same time, you have to communicate kung ano yung problema, anong pwede mong gawin, anong maibigay mo na intervention, kung kailangan i-explain mo through text, explain mo through phone calls, kung ano yung mga hindi niya naintindihan sa klase, sa lesson, then do that in that platform. So another thing in giving remediation, parents or guardians, parents or guardians must be informed for the needed intervention. So dapat aware na yung parents or guardian ng estudyante na may consistent below expectation results sa summative assessments. Dapat aware sila na yung anak nila or yung bata nila should undergo remediation. If not, ay babagsak kasi pag hindi mabigyan ng intervention, tamang intervention, may posibilidad na babagsak ang kanyang anak or ang kanyang bata. So, you have to inform them. Hindi yung ma-inform lang sila pag natanggap na nila ang grado sa report card. Sa kanila nalaman na bagsak pala ang kanilang anak or bata. So, 5th week, this is the clue, your cue. 5th week of any quarter. So, anong week na tayo ngayon? Nasa 4th or 5th na tayo, week na tayo ngayon, 4th week. So, maybe next week. So, tingnan nyo na yung class record ninyo and then check kung sinong mga learner ang dapat mabigyan ng tamang remediation. Alright? So, now let us proceed to grading. So, it is the way of reporting assessment data. So, ito po yung recording of assessment data and computation. By assigning a value to the results as a record of students' ability, achievement, or progress. So, ito na yung pagbibigay natin ng numerical grade. So, recording of the assessment results, data, and computation to produce a numerical grade. Quarterly assessment shall not be administered for the school year. So, noon, in the previous school year, as stipulated by our DepEd Order 8, Series of 2015, there are 3 components in our grading system. The written work, performance tasks, and the quarterly assessment. So ngayon sa policy guidelines ng ating assessment, meron na lamang dalawang component. Nawala na ang quarterly assessment. Wala na tayong periodical test na tinatawag or quarterly assessment in every grading period or in every quarter. Ang natira na lang ay written work and performance tasks, which is under the summative test natin. So, yung summative test na ibigay na lang natin per quarter is in the form of written works and performance tasks. Minimum of 4 written works and 4 performance tasks within the quarter. Minimum. So, pwede kayong makalampas sa 4 na written works or 4 or more than 4 performance tasks. Pero walang dapat bababa sa 4 na written work at 4 na performance tasks because that is the minimum. So, before, wala tayong limit kung ilang summative test ang ibibigay, ilang written work, tapos isang quarterly assessment. This time, wala ng quarterly assessment, then minimum of 4 written works and minimum of 4 performance tasks. Then all competencies should be covered by the performance task. So ito po yung tandaan natin. So lahat ng competencies on that quarter dapat may equivalent siya na performance task na naibigay sa mga bata. So again, this performance task need not be given per competency, but a combination of 2 or more competencies in each performance task. So ito yung weight distribution of the summative assessment components per learning area for grade 1 to grade 10. So, dalawang component na lang po tayo, mga kaguro. Assessment components natin ay written works na lang at performance tasks. So, this is the weight distribution. For languages, the mother tongue, English and Filipino, Araling Panlipunan, at ESP ay may 40% written work, 60% performance tasks. For science and math subject, we have 50% written works, 50% performance tasks. For MAPE, EPP, TLE, 30% written works and 70% performance tasks. So yun po yung weight distribution natin for specific clustered subject areas. Now for senior high school, we have this weight distribution. Still, written works and performance tasks pa rin ang components nila. And then for core subjects, 40-60. 40 ang written work, 60% ang performance tasks for all core subjects. Under academic track, work, immersion, research, business enterprise, simulation, exhibit and performance, that's 50-50. All other subjects, 40-60. For TVL and sports, arts and design tracks, lahat ng subjects nila 30-70 ang sharing. 30% written works, 70% performance tasks. Okay? So ito po ang dapat tandaan natin para sa pag-compute ng grades ng ating mga mag-aaral for this school year. So with that weight distribution, ganito na ang magiging mukha ng ating class record. Okay, we have the written works, 40%. This is an example for learning areas in English, Mother Tongue, Filipino, Araling Panlipunan, and ESP for grades 1 to 10. And senior high school core subjects kasi yung sharing nila 40% ang written work at saka performance task is 60%. So I will show you how to compute the grade manually kasi meron ng mga electronic class record ngayon na yung gagawin mo na lang enter ka na lang ng row score. Tapos ang software na ang magpo-compute. So this time, I will explain the manual procedure of how you arrive with that quarterly grade. So these are for subjects with the weight distribution of 40% written works, performance task 60%. Yung method ng computation are just the same with other subject areas. Ang nagbabago lang ay ang value ng weight distribution. But the process are the same. So written works, as said by the DepEd Order, minimum of 4 written works. So this is an example of the minimum. There are 4 written works in a given quarter. Sa performance task naman, meron din siyang 4 na performance tasks. Alright? Tapos, yung number of items or the highest possible score. Ang number of items ng first written work niya ay 20. Sa second written work niya, 25. Third written work niya, 20. Ang fourth written work niya, 20 items din. So, highest possible score, kung perfect ang bata, ito yung makukuha. So, a total of 85 for that quarter. So, here comes learner A. Ang score ng learner A for first written work is 18/20. So, lagay lang natin yung number of correct ng bata sa assessment o summative assessment na yan. So, row score po tayo dito. Row score ang ilalagay natin. So, 18 kuha niya sa first, 20 ang kuha niya sa second written output, 22, then 20 sa third written work, 17/20 siya sa fourth written work. So, just get the total. So, the total is 77 with a total number of items 85. So 77/85 po ang gagawin natin dito para makuha ang percentage score or PS. Ito, 91. So paano niya nakuha ang 91? So itong 100 is kung perfect siya, 85/85. So 100 ang percentage score. So dahil 77 lang siya out of 85, so paano i-compute? So we will divide 77, which is the total score of the learner, over the highest possible total score, which is 85. That is 0.91. Then 0.91 times, multiply po natin sa 100 para 91. So kaya yan siya 91 ang ating percentage score. So our weighted average po natin, WA, 40%. So 40% times 40% po si 91. 91 times 40%, that is 36.4. So sulat natin dito si 36.44 as our weighted average of learner A for written works. So for performance task, same procedure. Ang kuha ni learner A sa first performance task ay 12 out of 15. Second performance task niya, 13 out of 15. Then 19 out of 25. 15 out of 20. So kung mapapansin nyo, hindi naman laging below 50% ang kanyang kuha. So, ang si learner A ay hindi natin masubject for remediation, no? Kasi on the 5th week, siguro on the 5th week, makabigay na tayo ng 2 performance task, 3 written works. So, makikita natin na above 50% naman. So, beyond the expectation tayo or above expectation. So, ito yung mga scores ni learner A for performance tasks. So, i-add lang natin. Same process. Ito yung number of items for the 4 performance task given, which is total of 75. So that would be 56 divided by 75, that is 0.75. Then times 100. So ito yung formula. No? Divide 56 over 75 times 100, that is 75. Yan, so 75. Then times the weight of performance task, which is 60%. So 75 times 60%, that is 45. So 45. So the initial grade, pag perfect, 100. So initial grade, add lang tong dalawang green na to. The weighted average ni written work at ni performance task. So 36.4 time plus 45. So we have 36.4 plus 45, that is equal to 81.4. This one. So 81.4. Yan po ang kanyang initial grade. So, yun na ba ang isusulat natin sa report card? Hindi pa. Kailangan pa nating i-convert, i-transmute yan gamit ang transmutation table. We will still make use of the same transmutation table sa DO8 natin ng 2015. So, ganito pa rin. So, ang initial grade is 81.4. So, hahanapin lang natin siya sa mga ranges na to. Ang 81.4 sa initial grade na column. So, 81.4 belong to the range 80.80 to 82.39, which is equivalent to transmuted grade of 88. So, kaya yan, 88 ang kanyang quarterly grade. So, itong 88 na po ang lalabas na grado ni Learner A sa kanyang class record for specific quarter. Say, quarter 1. So, yung grado ni Learner A for this subject is 88. So, kung napansin nyo po, yung 75 natin dito, yung range niya ay 60 to 61.59. So, ibig pong sabihin nun na ang passing initial grade natin ay 60. Talagang child-friendly, no, learner-friendly siya. Kasi yung 60 na average mo ay ang passing initial grade niya. Kasi equivalent niya sa transmuted grade is 75. So, that's already a regalo, a gift to our students, no? So, all they need to do is to just get a computed grade, initial grade of 60 and above, no? Syaro, di pa na maabot. So, when we look at the grades nila, pag mag-initial compute tayo, kung dapat bang i-remedial ang bata o hindi, kailangan nakapasok siya sa 60 na initial grade. Kaya sinasabi ko kanina, see to it na bawat score ng bata, kapag below 50% siya, talagang babagsak na yan. No? Kasi below na yan sa 60 na limit natin. Automatic, on that 5th week in any quarter, i-address mo na yan for remediation. Para hindi tayo mahirapan pagdating ng panahon na computation na tapos may babagsak. Babalik pa rin ang tanong ng mga school heads sa ating mga teacher, what have you done? So dapat may ginawa tayong intervention or remediation bago pa man umabot sa sukdulan ng quarter. Okay? So for promotion and retention, kailan mapromote ang bata? Kailan babalik sa grade level? So wala tayong changes. So kung ano yung nasa DO number 8 natin series of 2015 as to promotion and retention, yun pa rin po ang ating gagamitin. So the guidelines on learners report card as well as on promotion and retention shall likewise follow the provisions cited in DO number 8 series 2015. titled Policy Guidelines on Classroom Assessment for the K-12 Basic Education Program. So promoted kapag naipasa niya lahat ng learning areas. Pag may isa o dalawa na bagsak, ang bata dapat mag-undergo sa remedial class. So ganun pa rin. And then mag-release ng certificate of recomputed final grade. So yung average ng kanyang grado sa card and grado ng kanyang remedial class, kukunin ang average. Pag maipasa niya ang lahat ng bagsak niya na isa o dalawang subject, saka siya ma-promote. Pag bagsak pa rin ng isa o dalawa, balik sa grade level. Pag may tatlong bagsak or more, balik sa grade level. Okay? So yun pa rin ang apply natin for elementary and junior high school. For senior high school, the same process din sa kanila na meron silang nag-a-apply sila ng back subject na tinatawag. Alright? So just review the guidelines on promotion and retention on this DepEd Order number 8 Series 2015. Ayan. My thank you for watching na po. So that's all for DepEd Order number 31 Series of 2020. You can download the said DepEd Order for more details and information. Now for those who want to have a copy of the PowerPoint file that I use in this presentation, you can have the download link. Just visit the YouTube channel Tropad ni Dangas at paki-subscribe na rin po and share. Doon po makikita nyo ang download link para sa downloadable file ng presentation na to. So thank you once again and have a good day.